In his book, Thomas Friedman argues that the world is going through a flattening process when in reality much of the world is still unflat. The nation-states of Mexico, Israel, and Finland prove that the world is unflat through their walls, their frustrated state, their lack of equal playing fields, and the lack of drive towards global trade. Friedman cites the fall of the Berlin Wall as the primary cause for the flattening of Germany, signifying the end of communism. He also implies that it is a huge reason why the rest of the world is flat and wall-less today. But this is not true. In Israel, there is a physical wall dividing the areas of Israel and Palestine. In Mexico, it is not a physical wall dividing the country, but a virtual wall with the income inequality gap. Neither of these countries are able to overcome the barriers, physical or financial, that separate them from the ability to trade and interact with the rest of the world. Because of the physical walls, the people of the nation-states become frustrated trying to knock down the conceptual walls. One of the barriers that Friedman says prevents nation-states from becoming flat is the conflict of being too frustrated from being close to thriving nation-states, yet unable to attain the same success. In the Israel-Palestine conflict, Israel has been pushing back Palestine into smaller and smaller areas. The Palestinians can see where they want to be and they know how to get there, but they can't because Israel is backed by the US and by the UN, and Palestine doesn't have nearly the same amount of force. In Mexico, there is a very large wealth gap. The main two ways that people in Mexico get money are by drug trade or by being in the government and receiving bribes. Since normal citizens are not able to easily get into either of these two forms of power, the individual economic gain is very hard to achieve. While the obstacle of walls and frustration cause nation-states to be unflat within themselves, unflatness is also evident on an international scale. Friedman often makes the point that globalization in the flat world is when nation-states are able to compete globally on an equal playing field. Mexico and Israel, however, are unable to compete with a country like Finland. Compared to Mexico and Israel, Finland has an extraordinarily higher GDP rate and lower poverty rate. Because there is such a tremendous gap, Mexico and Israel's competition standing are as far apart from Palestine's as New York is from Los Angeles. Another emphasis that Friedman makes is that countries must continue to change alongside the world around them. While Finland is sustainable within the country itself, it is not pushing out to trade with other countries or keep up with the demand of the progressing world. This results in an unemployment rate that is higher than both Mexico and Israel, who are constantly trading with different countries around the world. In 2007, Finland experienced an economic crisis. The dairy business declined due to Russia's trade regulations, and Nokia and Finland's forestry industry was unable to keep up with the changes in digital technology. After the fall of these main exports, Finland only had tourism as their main industry to fall back on. It had remained content with itself for so long that it didn't work to excel and modernize their industries to compete in the changing world around it, leaving it in worse economic standing. In his book, Friedman states that the world is going through a flattening period. However, when you look at the physical walls in Israel and Palestine, the conceptual walls in Mexico and Israel, the drastic differences in GDPs and poverty rates between Finland and Israel, Mexico, and Palestine, and lastly, the unemployment rates between Finland and the rest of the countries, it proves that the world is not as flat as Friedman originally thought.